Welcome back to the most professional StarCraft 2 with the former world champion Terran in the red from Team Liquid. It's Clem, facing off against one of his greatest rivals, the Zerg in blue, the Italian stallion. We have Reynor in a best-of-5 Terran versus Zerg tournament showdown, part of Wardi's 2025 end-of-the-year championship. And before we get started, it'd be incredible if you could smash that like button, or maybe even subscribe. Help me count the algorithm, and Jimmy, what are we at? 1,765 likes on this video, on this cast, and I'll cast another one. And I'll probably do it anyways, because I don't know what else I can do with my life. But thank you for watching. Hopefully, you've had a good day so far. And hopefully it's about to get just a little bit better. As the first Reaper comes in, tries to snipe off some of the Zerglings, but mostly just doing what he can to keep the Zerg under control. Alright, make sure that he knows he's watching. And the Queen comes out and politely yet firmly drives the Reaper away, and we see both players with 3 bases in production. And Reynor didn't want to bother with the Reaper, so just takes the base at the 9 o'clock location. Usually a little less valued, as the triangle base is easier to defend against drops and kind of defends your main just by existing. But getting the 3rd base in a timely fashion is certainly better than not getting it at all. Which, Clem also agreeing with that methodology. 3rd command center is on the way. Even before the starport began at the Queens. Sneaking around the corner, Brenda bounce, brings it! Revenge. The Queen bounced into the Reaper, the architect of its own demise, the hubris. Costing, well, it's a small victory, but a strong emotional victory, as that first Reaper is absolutely infuriating. And it slightly lessens the potential damage of the Hellions. The chances the Queens are going to get knocked out of the way right before the Creep Tumor is able to complete. And we already see the effects, as the first Creep Tumor at the 3rd will come to fruition and start to metastasize across the field. But behind it, Cloak Banshee is on the way. It looks like we've kind of graduated out of the Banshee speed attempts for a little while with a new patch. 3 months old, but in StarCraft terms, that's a newborn, as we have the 2 youngest players in the game, but I digress. Banshee speed is now as quick, if not slightly quicker to upgrade than Cloak. But sometimes not being seen at all is better than being fast enough to not be hit. So it seems like Cloak is going to remain the staple, and Banshee speed mixed in for a little extra annoying flavor. The Hellions trying to keep control of the creep on either side, but for the most part, the Queen defense teams, 3 of them, enough to make sure that none can get picked off with too much ease. Lair is already halfway done quite quickly, and 2 more gases on the way. Mutas? Banshee Cloak 10 seconds out. And Clem just gonna go right down the center. The Spore Crawler isn't quite done. Clem eating a few knitting needles from one of the Queens. And that's going to cost him some drones. Reynor just a little bit late on the spores, and the drones will suffer for it. And Clem is going to see 2 gases and a Baneling nest. It is quite early to be getting 2 gases at the natural as well. And there it is. The Spire is on the way. Muta's on the agenda. Meanwhile, back at home, Clem reinstalling add-ons like he just put a new browser on his computer, and the 3rd command center will be landing. So he hasn't seen the Spire, and it'd be almost impossible to do so. But there are tells there. Some of the Queens taking some hits from the Banshees, but the Overseer eventually shows up. Queen patched up just enough. Banshee's taking a bruising, but can get back home and be repaired. So, the age-old split. And if anyone can make Mutas work, it's the fastest player in the game, Reynor. I haven't seen too many others who've been efficiently able to do so against Clem. The Spire was buffed. It costs 50/50 less and builds 5 seconds faster. And you might be like, that doesn't sound like a lot. And you're right. But it's something. And that combined with Banelings having 5 more HP again. It was nerfed a couple years ago, but now Banelings have 35 HP once the speed upgrade completes. Brings Mutaling Bane from almost suicidal to risky. A Mutal Risk, if you would, with 7 on the way. It's going to be the split between Clem going for upgrades and trying to hit a critical mass of Marines, and the Mutas knocking down. So there is no other Zerg composition that can reliably deal with medevacs. The multitasking and the momentum that Clem is able to gain with those medevacs is essentially what he's built his entire career off of. So the mutas have a chance to undercut, or at least cut that down. But at the same time, they are fragile creatures and the most expensive unit Zerg can really build, especially en masse. So we'll see as the first couple come across. The mutas are actually flapping across the map on the other side. He's not even going to bother trying to engage early. Baneling speed is finishing, but the Marines are stimming forward. Reynor supply blocked a bit as well. The Baneling's trickling in. Speed finishes mid-fight. 1-1, not quite there yet. The mutas, unfortunately, stuck at a supply depot. The medevacs, Baneling speed's done. The Hellbats will be taken out. The Marines on the run. And Clem looking the other way. It's a disaster. As the medevac is taken down by the knitting needles on the way out. 5 SCVs dead. The mutas were clearly the distraction that Reynor needed. But the Widow Mines and Reynor edging right now. And who doesn't enjoy that? But he's caught between the mines and the Marines, and he's actually threading the needle. Not perfectly, but he decides losing a couple mutas is better than losing all of them. And I agree with that math, but it's a bit of a painful process. So, the supplies are even, but in my so humble and modest opinion, a lot of people in the comments, very smart people, they're in the comments, tell me that. The game is not. Clem didn't start his +2 weapons. Okay, Beyond. I don't know if he... Oh, might not have had the resources. But Reynor has 80 drones. He's got 5 hatcheries going on 6 and 7. Though the Banshees are back. They weren't taken out in the first round, and they can certainly drag the mutas out of position as well. Because every second they're chasing the Banshees is another second Clem has to shore up his position at home. Drilling Claws is on the way. The Marines will clear up some of the creep down the center, which is likely going to be the next attack path. The gold base. I saw Clem clicking something over. He knows that's really the secondary option. There aren't that many bases to work with here on Tyto Citadel. Reynor's already taken the majority of his. And the eternal split between mutas and Marines. Can the mutas get a critical mass and keep the Terran contained until you can overrun them and or tech up? Or does the Terran army, which is on the open in a straight-up fight, much more effective, can it find that fight and win the game off it? The Marines, the Mines, the Marauders, and now Thor's being added in, are much better in a straight-up engagement than the Mutas, Lings, and Banes. The thing is, Mutas, Lings, and Banes get around pretty quick, and you're almost never going to get that perfect engagement that you're dreaming of. The missile turret will be repaired, but not enough before the mutas are able to take it out. Another base to the north. Clem doing what he can with the drops to keep things at bay. There's some Widow Mines in the main. Thor is here with the explosive payload designed to deal with the mutas. Really the only thing. A second Widow Mine hidden under the barracks there. Knocks out the Overseer, which means the mines will survive. And now Clem is maxed out with 2-2 upgrades closing in. He'll have a 30-second advantage. Reynor, pop it out some more Overlords so he can actually max out himself. The income has swung towards Reynor. I mean, having a 4th base and going on a 5th will do that. But Clem is dropping mules down, and the income gap is closing quickly. Already +3 armor. The upgrades are everything. Clem unlikely to be going for any more tech besides those upgrades. It's going to be Thors, Marines, Mines, and Medevacs. As trying to go Ghosts or anything else means you sacrifice the mobility you need to deal with this sort of army. But look at that textbook spread out of Clem. There's a whole bunch of Zerglings. The Planetary Fortress is done. The Baneling's looking the wrong way for a moment. And a couple of them getting targeted down, and the Planetary may live because of it. The big job, huh? The Zerglings and Banes a little bit strung out. The army stimming back. The Thor as a mobile defense turret, all tucked up inside the medevac, and Clem will hold. Reynor kind of misfiring on that attack. And it doesn't take much to turn the momentum back towards the Terrans. A missile turret targeted down. The second one will be repaired in time. Trying to grind through it. The Glaive slicing through the SCVs. The Zerglings cut off by the reinforcements. Meanwhile, Clem on the other side. Widowmine burrowed down. 2-2 upgrades across the board, +1 for the mutas. A whole bunch of SCVs going to be taken down, but this hatchery is in a precarious position. Banelings not known for their effectiveness against Thors. Sorry, Nesty. But, oh no, the mutas! Got distracted by the rocks. But it's not the time for archaeology. The Mutas, a couple cut down because of a bit of a misclick, and the Widow Mine's gonna take quite a toll as well, but Reynor, he still has 81 drones. He's expanded to that bottom left corner of the gold base, giving an extra boost of income. And the Ultralisk Cavern is now in production. Reynor's made it up to Hive. He's adding adrenal glands and +3 carapace, but Clem is not laying off the pressure. The drop to the north actually finds 0 hatcheries there, which is exactly the amount he likes to see. Clearly intent on trying to keep control of the situation, then realizing that, well, Reynor has obviously expanded somewhere. Sets his sights on the bottom left corner. Meanwhile, though, the Widow Mine's doing just as much damage to the Terrans as the Zerg. Clem takes out 13 of his own SCVs. This battle has continued for multiple minutes, and I don't see it ending anytime soon. Widowmine scattered throughout. Drop takes out the third. Muta swinging into Clem's. Meanwhile, the Lynx and Banes and even the drones are on the run from the former gold base. The orbital command could be targeted down. The triple drop ping cushion by the knitting crew, but it looks like they'll be gunned down in turn. The Frenchman with some revolutionary tactics. Meanwhile, the Mutas just clearing up what's left of the third base. Ultralisk in production. Both players still very high on supply as the economies have mostly been maintained, but Clem has dropped under 50 SCVs, meaning his army supply is massive. Unfortunately for him, though, some massive units are in production to deal with it. The Ultralisks against such a shoestring economy for Clem. Usually Ultras, they're difficult to deal with, but not impossible. But when Reynor has this much to throw around, one misstep could be absolutely disastrous. Well, for either side, with this many Widowmons on the field, as the Widowmons crashing in, some more slamming into the Mutas as well. Clem maintains the supply. And, what an inefficient... Oh, Banelings! Whoa! He walked right over the Baneling mine. I don't know if Reynor noticed or if it was intentional, but he comes back around... And then, in the scan! Oh my, Clem triggers it for him! I'm not sure if Reynor was trying to wait to just hit Marines so the Mutas could clean up the rest, but now the Thors are here. Chitinous plating is nearly done. What happened? +3 carapace is not done yet. Clem has an upgrade advantage for a few more moments. I mean, it will be maintained. It'll just be cut in half. The hatchery is targeted down easily. The Widowmines thin out the Banelings. The Thors are retreating. The Mutas find an angle. There's Marines and Marauders in the former third base that's been reestablished. He found another orbital command. Magic boxes, takes out a Thor. Spreads out the damage, and the other Thors are stuck in front. The Ultras have cloven them in twain. And the Ultras will back off before the bio is able to tuck itself into the mineral lines. Meanwhile, 150 supply across the board. What a game. The Mutas still finding an opportunity. Both players desperate to get damage done. Clem has successfully limited Reynor's economy, but not enough. He's lost his third base too many times. He's down 30 SCVs. There's some infestors in production. The Overseers were taken down. He's not going to get the orbital, but some more SCVs maybe. The Widow Mine splashing across the Mutas. Only enough to take out one at a time, but it adds up. Thing is, though, the creep has never really been reliably cleared. It's been cleared out to the bases that Clem tries to attack, but it's still a lot of maneuverability, especially for those Ultralisks, which are not the most wieldy creatures. But a Cerofester! One infestor to unburrow and from the darkness, bind them. The fungal catches. He targets down the infestor, gets revenge. I thought this was a banshee, but a single hero Marine. The Widowmine gets some hits. Clem still maintaining the supply. The Widowmine starting to add up damage across the board. Almost impossible to keep track of all of it. The Overseers have been going down left, right, and center, usually leading the charge, and that means getting hit first by the mines. The double drop to the north, finding a few transferring drones, and Reynor starting to dip as well. Another command center. Clem shoots his own Widowmine just to make sure everybody feels very motivated. The Widowmine's being used to take out more of the SCVs. That there's still the one in the corner with 22 kills and counting. Reynor goes back to building Mutalisks. He's going up to 20. When the going gets tough, Reynor builds Mutas. It's a Muta risk indeed. But he really wants to control the drops. If you have 20 Mutas with +2, I think that's enough to deal with a double drop. The Seralfester. Just sharking around, trying not to move it lest Clem the spot the worm sign, which is quite visible, but only when it's moving.
This better be good.
Quite visible may have been overselling it. Does he see it? It's right there. This could be a disaster for Clem. The armies on either side. That Infestor is so well positioned. But the Widow Mines are covering the back line. I'm surprised we didn't see a back scan here, but he doesn't have that many orbital commands. That army is so clumped up. Just disgustingly so. The Mutas overwhelm the missile turrets. There are no more Thors. There's nothing to stop the flock of Mutas besides the Marines themselves. The Mutas continuing to force the issue. He's driving Clem back. The patience / distraction here as Reynor at a casual 4-digit APM, but even that's not enough to keep all the Mutas alive. The Bio Ball continues grinding forward. The Widow Mine's covering it on either side. The boys already running away from the Mutas as they're rampaging through the mineral lines. Clem down to 30 SCVs and continuing to drop, yet still 200 supply. Another fungal from the front. The Ultras charging forward. The Infestor at the back. If there was ever a time. He's trying to drag it around. The Muta's cutting off the reinforcements. Clem still getting so much damage done, but Reynor's able to refill. He's maintained the economy. The Mutas just flapping their way through. Another Widow Mine from the side, not quite. But no missile turrets, not that they'd slow these Mutas down for much. I've been waiting so long. All right, really? This running over the Infestor this whole time? The rest of the Bio Army? I can't even tell if the Infestor is still there. We'll see. Oh, it gets taken out by a Widow Mine. Are you fucking kidding me right now? Anyways, the Muta's at the 4th base. I can't believe that Infestor. Of all the things, that's so appropriate. Only Seral's allowed to use them well. 1,000 APM, but Infestor gets collateral damage by a Widow Mine. Meanwhile, the Muta's still pinned back. We've been in this situation before, but the Marines have 3-3 and the Muta's only +2 attack. How is it so close? Clem has lost 5,000 less resources, but that's almost exactly the number that Reynor has mined more, including also, well, 5,000 more Vespene gas. A Widow Mine, a different one. It was cleared up earlier. The game slows down as the economies are reaching critical lows. The main and second bases have dried up. The 3rd base, the only reason Clem still has minerals is because Reynor's hit it so many times. Reynor now mining from 2.5-ish bases. The Bio swinging in, but the Zerglings can drag the mines. The Infestor is in place. He pops it up, but he gets into the medevac just in time. Can he hold long enough for the Mutas to come save the day? Or will the Mutas be caught in turn? It looks like the second one. The medevacs will be saved for now. The fungal's not enough to take them out. Stimming forward. How many medevacs remain? Still 7 of them. The Bio Ball, the M&M and M&M. Still continuing forward. He hasn't bothered with Thors for a while. He hasn't had the economy. How are they both still at 190 supply? Clem clearly on a much thinner economy. The Zerglings cutting off the reinforcements. 1 SCV freaking out because it's trapped in the main. 14 more SCVs dead. The Widow Mine's finding terrible, terrible damage at the front. But the Zerglings wreaking havoc behind. Zerglings in 3 out of 4, maybe 5 bases. The Mutas, still 11 of them. A brawl in game number 1. Reynor maintaining map control, but he is just a few Widow Mines away from total disaster. Meanwhile, Clem has 4 orbital commands, but a single Infestor. I think Reynor has the advantage because of the economy. It's the economy, Steve. The constant fighting across the map. The Mutas, the Marines will stim, take out another Muta or 2, as they're made out of paper mache and Terran tears. The hatchery itself being targeted. But Zerglings enough. Marauder left behind. The mutas find the medevac. Another attack to the left side. The muta's clearly not there. These medevacs already bruised. Infestor will spot the main army moving out. Jams a lot into the corner. He knows. The scan catches the Infestor at the edge. Reynor has no gas. There are ghosts in production for the first time this game. Clem feeling obligated. The Infestors are too much of a threat. The Bio Ball might be, I believe the technical term is dummy thick, but that's just a liability up against 5 Ultras and are you... 71 Banelings. That is so many Banelings. Well, a lot of the Widow Mines scattered throughout. We'll do some Prairie Dog micro in order to draw the shots. The mutas anticipating a drop. Zerglings protecting a base. Would kick some of the observers out of the game just in time for a Fungal to land down the center. And the Widow Mines. Oh no, the Banelings are trickling through. The Marauders sacrificing themselves. But there are so many Banelings just rolling through. The Orbital commands some collateral damage. And the Banelings are gone. But I think so is Clem. A desperate attempt to drop. But the mutas are in place. The medevacs will be knocked down. And Reynor has overwhelmed the field. The Mutaling Bane Ultraless composition will rush over the field with almost unlimited Zerg. And Reynor still maxed out with money for next game. I think that's it. The mutas, the ghosts, too late. And too little. The bio still. But Zerglings and Reynor, the unending swarm. 650 actions per minute. And still not enough. But enough to cross the finish line. 115 Banes. What a game. Making the mutas look like the choice. The once and future composition. And a little bit biased. My favorite. I've always loved the Mutaling Bane. It's iconic. Ever since the Brood War, which predates both of these players. As they are literally younger than it. Anyways, how's the back pain? But like and subscribe. So I can pay for health insurance. Clem holding on so much longer than I thought he could. Or even should. But Reynor eventually. The economic weight. The mutas and their constant map control. Making sure that Clem couldn't just be playing whack-a-mole against the hatcheries. Eventually means the war of attrition went to the Zerg. That was a nostalgic game, even. With Banelings being back to their previous HP counts and mutas possibly hitting the field a little bit quicker, I think the equilibrium has tilted a little towards the Zerg in the mid-game, potentially. Now, it really depends on how much damage you're able to get done. But the obligation is on the Terran to find a timing. And Clem was not able to cut through. I think, therefore I am. But the moment that defined it was very early. Now, depending on how the game ended, you could pick a different moment. But the very first mutas were the most important. And they didn't even do much. They got a few kills, but they distracted Clem. When the Banelings rolled in and destroyed that first drop, and even lost one of the medevacs, when all those Marines were taken out alongside the medevac, that took any map presence that Clem had and threw it into the unit's lost tab. And from there, the mutas were mostly uncontested. If he keeps another dozen Marines and a medevac alive, the priorities of the mutas are much less clear. You can't, not even Reynor is capable, I think, of splitting his mutas and microing them efficiently, especially against Widow Mines and upgraded Marines. For the most part, they all have to be flocking together. So, losing that momentum so early on, the moment the mutas hit, knocked Clem several steps back. and he couldn't quite close the distance. What a game, though. Reynor sent out his drone at like 30 seconds to make sure that Clem couldn't block the base. We're on Mothership, by the way, game 2. I had to pontificate about that last one, but I think that was a game worth recapping. The drone escapes into a spore crawler. The queen thinks she can get away with a larva inject, but gotta get your priorities straight. Reaper comes back in. Ah! Churlish! Insubordinate! Brenda, are you okay? No! You're not supposed to give a real answer. It's just being polite. I'm not feeling very polite, Susan. I can see that. Sorry, I'm blacked out for a moment. The Reaper goes... Oh. Oh, I thought he'd go for it. Almost pops the queen around and gets the creep tumor, but... not this time. Meanwhile, back at home, very similar build out of Clem. I mean, because of queens and their utility / inflexibility, somehow both are true. But queens, you're one size fits all. Well, you usually need more than one. Defense and macro. Because of them... Defense, Brenda? His words! No. Okay. That is just gratuitous. The employee entrance there for the We done? Are we done? The Reaper has finally left the premises. Okay. Chicanerous and deplorable. You got him? Yeah, I got it. Roaches, by the way. I wanted to expand on that, as Reynor did not go for Zergling speed, instead rushing up to roaches. We've got 4 sloaches going on 5. Not enough to really do an attack, as there's no anti-air besides the queens. And that is why we see such a similar, at least opener from Zerg in pretty much every matchup, and sometimes even ZVZ, but you're reliant on the queens, though they are strong, almost arguably too good at what they do. But their main weakness is their inability to explore the map on their own. Let's put it that way. That's a nice way of putting it. The travel restrictions. The Banshee would easily deal with the roaches, but roach is a very larva-efficient way to help with the Hellions. They are much less expensive in that sense than the Zerglings, but of course, also not known for their speed. Lair is on the way significantly later, looking very much like a mid-game push here. +1 Carapace on the way. No, you build that Evo. You build that Oh, the Banshee almost cuts it off. Oh, that was close. But the queens, the Frenchman, looking to assassinate the queens. And he gets one. And he might not be done, as right now, how many queens are there? Only 4 more queens. When you go for roaches, usually you slack on it just a bit, as you're relying on the roaches to defend. But the Banshees will get a couple kills. Evo Chamber is canceled. The temporary wall. The Hellions working their way around. Infestation Pit is already on the way. The roaches boxing out for now. Down goes one. Another one runs out of energy immediately. Banshee's taken out. 5 drones dead, though. Reynor absorbing the damage for now. Continuing to push the creep. We've got Zergling speed on the way. Baneling nest. It looks like just a roach shield. Did he even get roach speed? No. In fact, Reynor has no upgrade. 7 minutes into the game. of any kind. I guess creep is kind of a speed upgrade, but not one that's going to show up in that tab. Double drop headed out. Road speed on the way now. Interesting. Going for the more meaty composition, which will leave Reynor with a significant lack of anti-air. But sometimes the best defense is a good offense. The creep looks crazy on this, like, force field surface. Oh no, all 4 Hellions, 3 Hellions make it by. Enough to kill drones in a single volley, but another great Evo chamber block. The Queen's dealing with this. The Zerglings coming down. Roaches boxing out the Marines to the north. Zergling speed. Now finishing. I feel like Adrenal Glands is going to be very soon after. But the Sporimeter here. The Sporchard. Reynor is put together. There you go. Those commenters were like, why don't you just build 74 spores to defend medevacs? Well, in certain locations. I know, I'm being a little facetious. But there's a time and a place. And apparently this time in this place. Vipers. Any other hive tech? He did not go for a Hydralisk Den. There is no Ultralisk Cavern. It's literally just Vipers on the way. Blinding Cloud and Parasitic Bomb, both strong choices. It's always good to have Vipers. It's just a question of whether their cost is worth cutting out the other potential parts of the composition if you didn't speed there so quickly. But nobody's saying Vipers are bad. It's just, are they worth it? The Queen's targeted, as the medevacs until Parasitic Bomb have pretty much free reign, and then they just have to do some social distancing. And Ultralisk Cavern is on the way. But still a long way from being delivered. And then chitinous plating and everything else behind it. The Marines jammed into the corner with no Banelings. It's going to be almost impossible to dislodge. More Marines to the north side, a single siege tank. The Widow Mine's getting a little bit forward. And now a couple being dragged into the Terran army. The Banelings on the creep, crashing into the Marines, and it's a disaster! Clem, far too deep and far too greedily. The Marines have to slurp into the medevacs. But the survivors, far outnumbered by the dead on the field. Clem with a bit of an uncharacteristic commitment, though getting caught yet again. We saw that last gaming. The medevacs boosting past the Vipers. Not quite fast enough. No spores here, but double parabomb. Not enough to kill outright, but with a couple knitting needles from the Queens. And it doesn't stack, very importantly. But wait, he realized at the last moment, but down goes the medevac with all hands. The Queen. A lot of attention being paid here. There's still a Banshee. Has racked up only 6 kills. Okay, I thought it was going to be way more dramatic than that. Drilling Claws is done. The Widow Mines being dragged into the Zerglings, but Clem microing back in time. The medevac taken out by some parabombs, but the Vipers still missing in action. The Banelings rolling through, the Marauders body blocking in front. And Clem able to stand his ground and drive back the Zerg and now make his way down the ramp. Chitinous plating is on the way. The Ultralisk has popped out, but it's just a Paperlisk for now. Should be easily targeted as long as he can deal with the Lings and Bane. Another Widowmine. Where are the Vipers? On their way, taking their sweet time about it. Unfortunately, they didn't add some afterburners. Overseers will clear up the mines, and now there's a Spire in production. But I don't think it's for Mutas, but instead, Corruptors, kind of required at this stage of the game to have reliable anti-air. Otherwise, you're just treading water against the medevacs, which will drown you in the blood of Zerg and Terran alike, but eventually take such a good position, it doesn't matter. The Baneling's caught in front, and Clem finds an engagement he likes. Targets down the last Baneling, and again, the lack of anti-air quite glaring as Clem continues to roll around the field. Absolutely no pressure on the other side. That's another part of this. There's been nothing to force Clem to look away. There's been nothing to keep his economy from growing at nearly the same rate as the Zerg. Sure, Clem will lose a medevac here and there, but there are 5 bases back at home, 81 to 84 workers, and 4 more command centers in production. Clem, he's investing in the future, and right now, Reynor is struggling in the present. A fusion core is on the way as well, that tier 3 tech. Likely for advanced ballistics and Caduceus reactor, but the Ultras left without any Banelings, thinned out. 10 SCVs dead. Planetary Fortress drawing aggro. Meanwhile, Roaches and Langs may have to lift this base. He does. Many of the SCVs will be sacrificed. 16 dead, but he can replace them quickly if he even wants to at all. Clem starting to grind out the ghost count. Ghosts, very good, but they take quite a while to build up. And during that time, you're definitely more vulnerable than any other. Liberators in production. All the things that Clem didn't even have a hope of getting to last game are now already in production. Getting +1 flyer attack. Reynor trying to defuse the Widow Mines. He's still got some Roaches mixed in, which at this point are kind of a liability in the composition. He wants to trade them out for probably more effective units per supply. Siege tank helping the Zerglings get some kills at the 3rd, but another drop in the Vipers. 1 gun down, some parabombs. The medevacs will take another bruising. 1 unlucky Marauder taking the wrong angle. The Planetary Fortress is nearly done down here. Nice little split out of Reynor. Still trying to find an opportunity. But so far, the Planetary will hold. He's definitely trying to trade out the Roaches. It's just, what do we replace him with? There's no Corruptors. Now's the time. Well, 4 more drones. 90 drones. Langs and Banes on the way. The creep about halfway across the map. But Clem, his economy is similar. The Y-axis, quite tight there. Blinding Cloud on the Planetary, but the Ultralisk is face-to-face. The Banelings. Nice, spread the Ghosts, spreading out, but survive most of the Banes, line up their shots, and knock out the Ultra. And the displayed command center becomes a functional one after the Planetary is taken down. Will be a more vulnerable location, but Clem stimming forward. The Lings will take advantage of that exact moment. Sprinting by. 8 Corruptors are on the way as Reynor now gearing up to actually engage the army head-on. The Zerglings continuing through. He carved a gap in the defenses. He took out the Planetary down the center. And now, Clem doesn't really have a central location to work off of, at least as easily. The banks are about even. There are Ghosts, 11 of them on the field. Widow Mines, few Marines sacrificed. Liberators on the way, still nothing out of the fusion core. Clem gets a moment. Cloak for the Ghosts. The SCVs are stuck. Oh. The supply depots are raised, which could be awkward if they remain so for too long. A huge swath of Banelings. 48 Banelings and just 32 Lings on the field. Clem building another. We've had first fusion core, but have we had second fusion core? He forgot about his fusion core. Anyways, the snipes come off. The Vipers at the back, but the EMP lands before they get anything. The Venn diagram of freedom is overlapping over the Ultras and Banes. The Corruptors will knock out the Liberators as the biomass and the explosive shield of Banes. He knocks out an Ultra, splits the Ghost, takes out the Banes, but Clem knocked down to 140 supply. That's a lot of damage. Clem takes a better trade, but Reynor bashes through the base at the front. He resets the Liberator count, and the fact that Clem forgot he built a fusion core in the first place means that he doesn't have those key upgrades for the late game. The advanced ballistics, the Liberator range, the Caduceus reactor for medevac energy regen, these are all incredibly important to maintain supply efficiency. Not cost of, well, I guess that's cost efficiency, but just to make less supply do more for you. Because usually we're dealing with near maxed out armies, and it's about the quality of your composition at that point, and no longer just the quantity. Single SCV repairing command. Big job, huh? Still none of those fusion core upgrades, but the ghosts have been building up. 2 ultras obliterated before they even get close. Some banelings from the north side, though. The ghosts trying to slip back. Several of them dying. The SCV's on the run. An awkward chase. Driven all the way back to the natural, but the Widow Mines blunt the effect. The ghosts lining up some shots, managed to get hits on the ultras. The banelings chase them to the ends of the earth, but the Marines and Marauders are able to stop the brunt of them from connecting with the ghosts. So far, 12 ghosts have died, 6 remain. This fight has continued for 2 minutes. 8 ghosts, but 9 ultras dead. Reynor hasn't killed quite as much gas, but he's maintained 200 supply. He has quite an income lead, but the hatcheries are vulnerable and the army's still huge. And the Vipers, no! Hung out to dry. And Clem obliges. Cuts down the Vipers. The army supply is actually in favor of Clem now. And without Banelings, Zerglings are not enough. 6 ultras in production. But as a great man, arguably, Hydra once said, when I'm really far ahead and I want to lose, I build ultras. And every time I feel obligated to mention that ultras are much better than they were in that day and age. But a low economy game is not when ultras shine. They're a battering ram, not a scalpel. Clem, the fact that he... How is he? At one point he was building 4 orbital commands, so the simple fact that he is down to 5 orbital commands... How many have died? Only 2? I guess he has some planetaries out there too. He was building 4 command centers. I didn't see 4 orbital commands at once. Is that an accidental cyclone? Again, both players have pummeled each other to such a tenuous economy that neither can max out reliably. And neither wants to risk an engagement they're not sure they'll win. Meanwhile, the Fungals on either side. The Ultras cleaving through. Clem gets caught. The Corruptors on the other side of the map, but nothing to scout for them. There were some Marines here for some reason. 3/3 upgrades for either side. +2 mech plating for Clem. +2 flyer attack for Reynor. Finally, Clem remembers he's the double fusion core upgrades. Both of them. He remembers both fusion cores. But is it too little and is it too late? Or is it just in time? The Liberators will siege up. The Corruptors will knock him down, but the damage is being done. The Ultras leading the charge. Buffering for the Banes. But the army just dies. It evaporates in the face of the concentrated Terran firepower. There were no Fungals, no blinding clouds, nothing to break up the DPS of the Bio Ball. And now the Katamari Terran is just rolling across the field. Lining up more shots, lands a couple, forces the Ultras back. The hatchery just exploderated. And here comes Reynor, but the Fungal comes in. And it's too late. Clem managed to get the composition in time. Another brutal game, but Reynor unable to carve out quite as much map control. He went straight up to Hive, as opposed to kind of luxuriating in the mid-game, which is a choice. Unfortunately, that gives up a lot of the map control to the Terran. The trade-off is supposed to be you have a superior economy, and you just crush them with Hive Tech. But Clem is a slippery creature. He's able to slip away from the Ultras, dodge enough of those major attacks, and eventually Reynor just out of gas. Literally and figuratively. The Clempire strikes back in Game 2. Game 3's on Tourmaline. These two so evenly matched right now. I think Reynor Didn't want to just go straight to mutas again, expecting. It feels like not the staple strategy, but a strong minority. Like 1 out of 3 or 4 games, you break out the mutas. Not even necessarily map dependent, but if you do it every game, then the Terrans can kind of tailor their response. They're like, aren't they just going to go 3 CC into 5 racks with a factory? Yes, but I see your point. The timing of the engineering base. Well, really, it's just how you use the first 2 medevacs, actually, is the most important. And most importantly, not losing them one way or another. That's very key. Up against someone who's, say, rushing to Hive, it's sometimes okay to trade, so that way you can keep them building units and limiting their economy. But if you're trading without killing mutas or denying bases, then the mutas eventually snowball. Lings and Banes are not really a snowball unit. All right, having 50 Lings is not significantly better than 25. Whereas having 25 mutas is way better than having 12. Game 3. Pool first. Wait, no. I just saw a pool and I should have thought before I speak. But why say few word when many word do trick? Like, and also subscribe. Overlord. Gonna spot the command center. Normal timing, but you gotta check. All right. Regulations. The Reapers have been... Oh, the spawn camp. What a dramatic start to that queen's life. Reynor taking the 3rd base down the set. Now that's crazy. That's wild right there. I get trying to dodge that. Nah, that's crazy. This makes it seem like he definitely wants to go all in. Get some creep off of this and do like a queen push or something. That's wild. All right. It's like going to a restaurant alone, which, good on you. That's a lot of confidence. And maybe even more enjoyable. But also people will notice and ask, huh, what's he up to? Reynor. Huh. What's he up to? There's a roach warren on the way, which is not surprising. All right. Oh, the queens. Gonna be... Oh, the triple bounce! It's an absolute disaster. Reynor was convinced that was a wall. I think Clem was as well, but he just right-clicked and saw... Huh. What's he up to? What an architectural hero, Reynor. So the thing is, it doesn't end here. There's 2. This is why Reynor left the game. Not just the first Hellions. And then he built 2 more Evos. So it was at this moment he knew he fucked up. Oh. Oof. That is a weapons grade oof right there. We may never know what Reynor was intending with that hatchery, as this build ended well before it started. And you could fight it out. But Reynor doesn't even have Ling speed. Like, he's gonna lose 10, 12, 50, way too many drones. Way too many drones. That's the amount. And behind it, Well, he doesn't know what's beyond. It doesn't matter. That was an acceptable tap out. Still very early, but Clem. Wow. Oh my. I'm not even convinced Clem thought it was a gap. I think he just right-clicked to try to get by and was happily surprised. And just like that, Clem's on match point. Oh, if that's what changes this series, that is the worst and best kind of mistake. At least on the ladder, not in a tournament. But it's like, well, you can clearly tell where you went wrong. There's no ambiguity here. There's no questioning, well, if I had done this or that. Nope. Nope. Nope, it's pretty clear. Even my blind viewers can see that. Shout out to them. Kind of have to. I know. Well, winter madness indeed. Game 4. By the way, make sure to check out Wardi, the year-end championship. And thank you to Wardi for another incredible year. Literally putting the scene on his back. One of the few grassroots organizations that's truly in it for StarCraft. And by that I mean Wardi himself, but like, Wardi is an organization. He's got admins, he's got people. So, I try to support as well by, one, there's a, I don't know what he's doing on Patreon with it next year, but he has like an annual supporter thing, as well as sponsoring some of the tournaments. And I try to use about half of the Patreon/Dronelyfans money to support all sorts of tournaments in StarCraft 2. I think I'm up to like 5 or 6 different regular ones, but you know, it's an investment. Otherwise, we wouldn't necessarily be here watching good games for the fans. So, thank you for watching, and thank you to Wardi. And now, okay, Reynor. Time to buckle down. That is, oof. Alright. I wasn't ready to go back into commentating actual gameplay. Alright, I was trying to transition back from the filler commentary. I mean, very important, but still, kind of meta commentary. But just thinking about that I cringed. I may have physically cringed, but I definitely mentally cringed. The moment those Hellions went by. I probably would have left the game at that moment, but my latter games have less at stake. And more mistakes. It's how it is. A starport before 3rd Command Center for Clem. As the Queen's going to try to tag team the Reaper, but the Reaper not into that. Don't do it. The Zergling's boxing out. That Reaper thinking about the creep tumor. Living rent-free. Should probably get it checked out. Clem's still... Is this going to be a Hellbat push? The armory's on the way. Yeah. 2 base Hellbat all in. Well, well, well. Here we go again. Gonna try to pick up another quick win. But the usual defense against this is queens. Start and stop. That is why it feels a little questionable ever to do this build. But occasionally you catch a Zerg off guard. If you kill 1 or 2 queens without any of their fellows nearby, then it can grind through and get you a big lead. But there's no follow-up here. Like, no 3rd Command Center. No upgrades. Hellions darting by. A few Marines in the medevac. And here come the queens. 7 queens in total. I think maybe 1 transfuse between them. But here comes Clem with an attempt to burninate across the countryside. The queen's well spread out for now. And that one transfuse is used, trying to target fire down the Hellions. Getting in range of the medevac. Clem micros back, but down it goes. And a couple of the queens getting hot and heavy, but yeah, there's a, yeah, that, trying to get that last queen. Get off my queen! But you really waited until it was pretty clear. I like to be confident in things. It's good self-esteem. Thank you! Sorry. Well, the Liberator is able to siege up, but... So, that went about as mediocrely as I expected. The queens... Reynor loses 3 queens. 20 lings. A single drone, though I'm not even sure that was to the Hellbats. Liberator sieging up, finds a cheeky angle. And the queen, gotta get those toes out of there. The Tarantino Liberator wants a shot at him, and the Zerglings will overrun the Hellions, and Reynor has quite a lead. It's gonna be close. No, no, no! She overestimated those toes. And now things are getting... This one Liberator has already done more. So the Liberator with the new patch has less vision. It doesn't have enough vision to see the edge of its potential range, which is quite a smart nerf in my opinion. But it still has enough in many cases. So, in fact, Reynor might have been able to abuse that, but I think a lot of players don't really factor that in, as it's been literally since the Liberator existed until 3 months ago. It's had vision over the entirety of its liberation zone. It is only in the last 3 months that hasn't been true. So I don't think players are really... And you can always scan. If you have a spotter, you have vision for it, but... maybe when Cyril finally comes out of his sabbatical, which is literally what's happening. I have it on good authority that Cyril will be playing again at the beginning of next year. Home Story Cup, that is. But... yeah, Cyril has been on unofficial... So he's played 2 matches against major opponents. One in a team league where he lost 1-0 to Clem. And then against Showtime for the Basilisk Big Brain bouts, they kind of were like contractually obligated to get him to show up. And he crushed him 3-0. You can probably check that out on their channel. Otherwise, Cyril is not missing in action, but choosing to take a breather. We'll see soon. But Reynor so far and Solar have both been showing off some top-notch Zerg. Just ignore that last game real quick. Clem got very little done with the early aggression, but the Liberator stalled out Reynor a bit so that he doesn't have a hive done yet. He's got 80 drones, though. Like, Clem, by the time he's putting on pressure, Reynor has an upgrade advantage. It's just bad. I do not like... I don't like to just say builds that pro players are doing are bad. Because, one, it depends. But there are a few builds that I feel are so clearly mediocre as the Hellbat. Like the just stock Hellbat push. No kicker, just raw dogging Hellbats right into the third base. I don't know even why it's in the repertoire. Except to maybe get a free win slightly quicker. Occasionally. But rarely. Especially against players of this caliber. Maybe he was just trying to rub in the last loss to Hellions, but... There's an Ultralisk Cavern. Adrenal glands on the way. Reynor has everything it could ever want. I mean, within reason. We don't go beyond it here. That's another game. Up 30 supply. Up ahead in upgrades with an Ultralisk Cavern on the way. He's got twice as many bases. That's gonna be 6-7 hatcheries. Adrenal glands. The only potential risk is the fact that Reynor is getting everything. He's getting a Spire, he's getting a Baneling Nest, Overlord Speed, Chitinous Plating, Adrenal Glands. There's so much invested right now that there's a small chance that Clem can find a timing before it all kicks in. But Reynor has taken full advantage of the space that Clem ceded to him. And I think by the time the Terran army really arrives in force, the Zerg will be fully operational. Widowmine's taking quite a toll. Hold position to split it off. Huge counterattack, though. Makes it into the natural. Widowmine takes a massive chunk of the lings at the third and the natural, but there's so many. There's so many. 100 Zerglings dwindling rapidly, but replaced by ultras in production. +2 infantry, weapons, and armor. The 4th command center will lift moments before the planetary, which is probably the right move. The ultras are on the field. Reynor really making up for a lot of ground on that last game. Zergling splits it off, diffuses the bomb. The drops, but they're already spore zoning it out. This game looking more one-sided than a Mobius strip right now. As Reynor just rolling over the field. The ultras with chitinous plating, +2 melee. The constant counterattacks. The Widow Mines are quite a threat, but they're pretty visible on this map. Literally our snow map. That is not a wall. Clem should realize that after the previous game. And the Zerglings, some get into the main, actually, and will rip apart the Marines. As the Zerglings had even upgrades with adrenal glands, which makes them more than a match. Another base, forced to lift. And it's all coming undone. The Widow Mines dragged into the Marines. Cleaned up by the Ultras. The Infestors chasing behind. Fungal on the SCVs. Oh, chewing through that Ultra with 15 kills. Meanwhile, tries a counterattack. Clem still putting something resembling pressure on. And Reynor not quite refilling the army, and this Ultra... Oof. Knocked out on the way, but the medevac is knocked out of the sky by the now very present Corruptors. Clem, the Hellbat push didn't do enough, and he hasn't had nearly enough to even think about pushing back since that point. Reynor has run with his lead and is moments away from capitalizing entirely. Interesting choice to prairie dog that Widowmine. Zerglings. There is the attack targeting the hatchery, gets it. But the medevac's just barely fast enough to avoid the Corruptors for now. The Zerglings are just running over the field. GG. Or was it? Ooh. Clem, not hyped about that one, but... No, GG. Clearly a frustrating game, but also an odd choice. Felt like Clem was tilted from the very start, and I think that's confirmed by how it ended. But Reynor, with a clinical execution from start to finish, making up for the single yet game-ending mistake of the previous game. And just to make things interesting, we're going to switch the colors in game number 5. All tied up. Now, we'll see if Clem can tilt back around to a stable position. If Reynor loses this, that would be crushing. I'm not saying that he was ahead despite the Hellions on Tourmaline. I'm saying we never even got to see because he got his head cut off immediately. Guillotined and cauterized by the Frenchmen. And a lot on the line here. The biggest tournament of the end of the year. Over $10,000. Or I think exactly $10,000 in prizes, because if you go over 10,000, then Blizzard says about that. Which is why so many tournaments have that as the prize. Yeah, even to this day. It's not great. Don't actually know the details on it, but I know if you go over $10,000, either Blizzard needs to officially sanction, or they get a cut. I'm pretty sure it's not a cut. All right, I don't think they care that much about. But at that point, it's some sort of brand recognition, which at some point Blizzard cared about with this game. Ah, yes. Like and subscribe for existential dread. Well, I can't even agree with the salt and the tilt there. It was obviously tilting for Clem, but he opened up with the build that has such a low success rate. And even when it does well, that doesn't even necessarily translate because you've spent so much time focusing on that. It doesn't kind of lead itself into another timing easily. Unlike things like Hellion Banshee, where you don't have to get an armory, or you don't have to slow down your third command center. So, we'll see. Feels like one of those that's thrown out like once every 15 or so games. Just to see, maybe this time. No. That drone on the edge of death. Just dancing behind the mineral line, the queen. Driving the Reaper away, the creep tumor. Unfortunately, took too many scratches. Hellions in production. Starport on the... Is Clem looking to prove me wrong? He's not getting a third command center. What's this about? Hellbats, but with a cloaked banshee? And not getting a third command center is already worthy of note, by the way. That is... It's not like a small thing. That is a defining characteristic of the build. The Reaper somehow survived 3 queens chasing, but the Zerglings finally get a grab. Oh, the Hellions. They're back! This time around, there wasn't even an attempt at a wall, so the queens will be able to zone it out. Cloak is on the way. So, the Cloak Banshee does make more... It's more all-in, but it has a lot more potential to get damage done. In my not-so-humble opinion. Brenda, don't stop touching me! The queens fighting with each other. The Hellions just running by. And any... Oh, no. The Hellions much more mobile in their less bipedal form. The drone count is dwindling, both because Reynor's building Zerglings now, and because the Hellions, and they just keep coming, and they don't stop coming. The revolving door of Hellions. As Clem is successfully able to take out 4 drones. The Cloak Band, is there a spore? Oh no! The Overlord will give... Oh my god, are you okay? Overlords not detectors, not since the war. And Spore still, well, that Overlord saved the day. It existing in that spot, which is very intentional, in order to see anything coming in from this angle, but... Reynor gets the warning he needs to not lose another 10 drones. But his economy is still very... very rough. And the Cloak Banshee can cut off some of the queens here. The drones. Gonna be charbroiled. Just one for now. But even though there's the detection of spores, which is apparently in range here. Clem just staying all up in Reynor's business. And most of the queens... Oh no. The Hellions just darting in. And then into the main. 3 survive... Oh... It's getting worse. 7 drones dead. Jammed into the corner. The Cloak Banshee's looking for more. Reynor barely treading water on the drone count. Loses a couple more. Overseer on the way. Banshee, a strong gust of wind away from death. And no more knitting needles coming out from the queens. The loss is mounting. He traded 8 Hellions and a Reaper for 17 drones, which, at this stage of the game, well worth it. Behind it, Clem. He does have his third command center now. He's got 1-1 on the way, going to have quite an advantage. Reynor has +1 carapace in production, but no second evolution chamber. So it's a uncomfortable position, but not unplayable for the Zerg, obviously. Clem with a more meticulous method of keeping the momentum and map control this time around. But the follow-up with Marines and Medevacs is very important as well. As if this gets shut down, then Reynor just retakes everything. He gets up to 80 drones and we're back where we were. So we'll see. The Zerglings. The Banshee's covering for the Marines to unload. Changeling taken out. Baneling speed is on the way. Banshee's trying to draw the Queens in. Might be getting hit first. Pulling back. There's no Whittle Mines, but the Banshee's taking their toll as well if the Zerglings get too far forward. The creep is not quite extended far enough to really act as a springboard to defend this. The Marines just keeping the pressure on. Meanwhile, the Banshees will start to undercut the creep as well. Reynor's only at 60 drones against Clem at 66. Full 3-base saturation. Finally takes out one. Couple Marines taken down, but the Zerglings trading in turn. Almost like a matter of principle, he's building a Hellbat right now. That has to be a misclick. Why are you building one Hellbat? Who builds a Hellbat? Okay, not even Hellbats are built as Hellbats. That made sense. Hellions. Alright. Moving on. The Baneling mine is set up, but it's a little off-center. The Banelings with speed. But he just picks up into the medevacs. The counterattack, that Hellbat actually paying off. Still, the counterattack is good. He gets into the natural, the Zerglings. Marines drop behind the mineral line, but the siege tank. Friendly fire raining down. He cleans up the Zerglings at the 3rd. But there's a drop at the 4th. And the hatchery will be gone before Reynor has the chance to mount a defense. He cuts down some SCVs, but gets his production undercut in turn. And again, the Baneling mine just a little bit off. And it'll cost him. More Banelings coming up. Marines back into the medevacs. The double drop in the main. The Zerglings move to intercept. Still. Lings and Banes, but there's very little anti-air. The Queens are all that Reynor has, and they're not the most agile creatures. He hasn't had the economy. Well, at this point, he's struggling for larvae. He has 600 minerals, 500 gas, and 0 larvae. The Queens are running around trying to slap down the medevacs instead of getting back to injecting hatcheries, which we all know that they're much more enthusiastic about. For good reason. Lings and Banes across the board, but here come the reinforcements. The Bane mine was repositioned. And somehow it's still going to be mediocre. He knocks out some of the Marines. I don't even know if Clem noticed, but the Widow Mines will be diffused, but the Banshee's still going to work. Double drop at the natural, double drop at the 4th, and the other 4th to the north. Still finding some damage. How many Queens left? 7. Drop zoned out. 3rd base drop knocked out. The Queens can maybe concentrate to the north side now. Hatchery halfway done. Action back, game number 5. As is only appropriate, some Hydralis in production. But Clem maintains the supply lead, and he's going to have the upgrades. Reynor's done an incredible job of keeping things close here. But the momentum continues grinding its way towards the Terran. The Banelings will be canceled. The Hydras aren't quite out yet. They don't even have speed done. Some of them going to be cut down on the reinforcement path. Queens will zone out the medevacs, but the bio ball, Banelings goes again, but the medevacs here to save the day, but there's no Banelings! The Terran army is ripping through everything. Just a few Hydras at the back. The Marines will be evacuated. Not enough Hydras to knock down the medevacs, and now still the surviving members of the drop to the north. The Queens will be transfused, but not in time. There's still too much damage. He has to bring some more forward. The Widow Mines are starting to take an even more dramatic toll. 2-2 upgrades aren't even done yet. This isn't even Clem's final form. That's clearly the glaring issue here for Reynor. He does not have an infestation picked. He does not have a chance at a hive, nor a lurker den. It's getting harder and harder to defend the drops. Reynor's trying to hold it together, but Clem is tearing him apart. A much more methodical style. The Queen's going forward to try to deal with the Liberators, but the Venn diagram of freedom is liberating everything underneath. He forces the army back. The Widowmine's dragged into the Marines as well. But the Banelings are thinning out. There's only a few of them with the army here. The Liberators keeping the Hydras at bay. Some Banelings closing in, but a drop at the back. And even though Reynor... Oh, he's not able to clean it up. Oh, no. It's all coming undone. The Hydras weren't enough. Too little and too late. The drop takes out some more drones he can ill afford to lose. This hatchery has been under fire for the better part of the game. And now will finally be taken down. With the Italian GG. GG from Reynor, showing Clem how it's done. And I have to go back to that hero-level wall on Tourmaline. After all the fire and fury of this entire series, Clem buckling down after a clearly tilted game and really locking in. It was almost like a different player in Game 4 and Game 5, which I think is a testament to how far Clem has come as a player. He used to tilt all the time, and he still does. But now he can recover in the same series. And it looked a little spiteful with the Hellion run-bys and all that. Like, I can make it work. You're not good. I'm editorializing, but you know how Terrans think. Like, no. And see, found the Terran. But hopefully you enjoyed as much as I did. Hopefully it made your day just a little bit better. And if you have the means and motivation, be awesome to check out Patreon, YouTube membership. But I hear liking and subscribing. It's still free, at least for now. So thank you for watching. And thank you to our meal tier patrons, by the way. Bringing in the extra minerals. Big Jiggy, Devin, Door, Kate, Mario Suit. Glad you enjoy. And I hope to see you next time. Make sure to check out this video Jimmy picked out just for you. Just for you. Hard work. Good luck, have fun. Thank you for watching. Stay chill.